Chapter 5074. Just as Kong Shinmu was worrying about how to find an opponent, a piece of good news came directly from Emperor Xi's mystical dragon. Because the foreign enemies have been defeated, all the foreign supreme experts who invaded the Dragon God's great world have been forced to leave the Dragon God's great world. So, the Dragon Gods are finally at peace. It's precisely because of this that the various Holy Lands have decided to hold a competition invitation. This competition invitation is for dragon martialists of every level. Of course, they must be at least Emperor level. From 1st grade disciples to 9th grade disciples, dragon martialists of every level can participate in the competition of their respective groups. The winner will be rewarded handsomely, and the winner of the lower level group will be qualified to challenge the winner of the higher level group. Once they win, they will receive the rewards of 2 groups. Kong Shinmu, this is your chance. It just so happens that there is still a month before there is news from Mo Ya. Why don't you represent the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Holy Land and participate in this competition invitation? This news could be said to have hit Kong Shinmu's heart. He had been looking for someone to spar with, but he did not expect to receive such a competition invitation between Holy Lands. Kong Shinmu was a dragon martialist of the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Holy Land. Ever since he made a great contribution at the Soaring Dragon Fortress, he had been promoted to a 6th grade disciple. A 6th grade disciple was the 1st to 3rd level of the super mystical dragon. Kong Shinmu's current strength was already publicly recognized as having supreme god level strength. Some people even said that he was qualified to be a 7th grade disciple. However, it was already very good that he had been promoted to a 6th grade disciple. If he were to be promoted to a 7th grade disciple, many dragon martialists would probably be dissatisfied. After all, no one knew what Kong Shinmu's true strength was. Even when Kong Shinmu was promoted to a 6th grade disciple, there were still many people who doubted the fairness of the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Holy Land. Thus, if Kong Shinmu represented the 5 Extreme Profound Ice Holy Land to participate in this competition, then his status would be that of a 6th tier disciple of the 5 Extreme Profound Ice Holy Land. The 6th grade disciples would definitely face opponents from the 1st to the 3rd level of the Transcendent God stage. This was perfect for Kong Shinmu. If he could obtain the final victory in this group, he would be able to challenge the winner of the Class 7 disciples. Of course, that would be too difficult for Kong Shinmu. After all, a level 7 disciple was in existence from level 4 to level 6 of the Transcendent God stage. It was basically impossible to defeat the strongest person in this group. After all, the strongest person in that group was a Transcendent God level 6. There were even super experts who had reached the Transcendent God level 7. How could Kong Shinmu be a match for those big guys? However, Emperor Xi's mystical dragon soon sent another message. Kong Shinmu, because many people deny and doubt your strength, the 5 Extreme Profound Ice Holy Land has once again adjusted your status back to a 5th tier disciple. If you want to participate in the competition between the Holy Lands, you can participate as a 5th tier disciple. This made Kong Shinmu speechless. Wasn't this a little too shameless? However, thinking about it carefully, the 5 Extreme Profound Ice Holy Land wasn't cheating at all. Kong Shinmu was originally a 5th tier disciple. Previously, he had been promoted to a 6th tier disciple because of an exception. However, since many people doubted Kong Shinmu's strength, they would first adjust him back to a 5th tier disciple. This competition between the Holy Lands was an opportunity for Kong Shinmu to prove himself. If he wanted to become a 6th tier disciple, Kong Shinmu had to at least be the strongest among the 5th tier disciples, right? If he couldn't even do this, who could admit that he had the strength of a 6th tier disciple? Therefore, this was an opportunity for Kong Shinmu. An opportunity to be promoted to a 6th tier disciple without having to pass the test of the 5 Extreme Profound Ice Pagoda. Of course, this might not be very attractive to Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu's main concern was whether he could meet an opponent suitable for him so that he could train his compatibility with Chen Xing. This is an invitation for the joint competition between the Holy Lands of the entire Dragon God's world. In the entire Dragon God's world, even among the 5th tier disciples, there must be some very strong ones, right? A 5th tier disciple is the 9th level of the Dragon Emperor, the level of the Dragon Emperor peak. At this level, if I can become the strongest among the 5th tier disciples, there is no doubt that I can defeat some ordinary 1st tier and 2nd tier Supreme God opponents. Even if I only participate in the competition between the 5th tier disciples, I should be able to meet some opponents. Not to mention, after I win, I can still challenge the winner of the 6th tier disciples. Kong Xinmu showed a lot of interest in this. Gu Xinyue, Chu Yueqiang, do you want to give it a try? Kong Xinmu said with a smile. I'm a true 6th-tier disciple. I'm afraid I won't be able to get any benefits if I participate in the competition between the 6th-tier disciples. Gu Xinyue smiled bitterly. She had indeed been promoted to a 6th-tier disciple before. No one could say anything about this, but now it had become something that made her uncomfortable. This time, she had also received an invitation. Or rather, almost all the disciples of the 5 Extreme Profound Ice Holy Land, who were still in the 5 Extreme Profound Ice City, or in the 5 Extreme Profound Ice City had received this invitation. The invitation stated that in order to obtain rewards, one did not have to obtain first place in the Holy Land Invitation competition. Instead, there were rewards for the top 1,000. However, the difference between the rewards for first and second place was huge, not to mention the difference between the top 10 and the bottom 1,000. The rewards were divided into 7 or 8 levels. Of course, first place was the best, second to 5th was another level, then 6th to 20th, then 21st to 100th. A total of 1,000 people could obtain rewards. Even the lowest level could be rewarded with thousands of gold dragon coins. This was already relatively difficult. After all, thousands of gold dragon coins was definitely not a small amount for ordinary dragon martial artists. This was a competition that involved the entire dragon god's great world. Perhaps the reason was because of the invasion of the 4 major races. This had aroused the cooperation between the various holy lands. They wanted to use such an invitation competition to stimulate the cultivation and combat power of their disciples as dragon martial artists. They did not want to see the invasion of the 4 major races happen a second time. Therefore, it was necessary to strengthen the strength of the dragon martial artists of all the holy lands. At the very least, it was necessary to understand the strength of the disciples of the various holy lands at this stage. One had to know that there were too many holy lands in the dragon god's great world. Usually, many holy lands did not even interact with each other. This also caused the holy lands to not understand each other at all. After entering the battlefield, it was difficult for the dragon martial artists from different holy lands to cooperate. After this war, the higher-ups of the dragon gods decided to train their soldiers. Chapter 5075. All the holy lands attached great importance to this competition between the holy lands of the dragon god's great world. Before the competition, the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land had summoned almost all the disciples of the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land to gather in front of the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Tower. There were at least hundreds of thousands of disciples in the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land, if not tens of millions. To be able to become a disciple of the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land meant that one had a certain level of talent and compatibility with the divine dragon blood. This was the first time Kong Xinmu had seen so many dragon martial artists gathered together. Even on the battlefield, he had never seen such a dense scene of dragon martial artists. What kind of concept was it when hundreds of thousands of dragon martial artists gathered together? In front of the sacred pagoda of Pentapek's mysterious ice, there were over 1,000 layers of it, high and low. According to the arrangement of disciples, the first-class disciples were on the ground. Second-class disciples were 1 level higher than first-class disciples. Third-class disciples were 1 level higher than second-class disciples. And so on. There were fewer and fewer people on each level. The number of 9th-class disciples was the least. Kong Xinmu looked up at the highest point and could feel that there were only a few hundred 9th-class disciples. Even the total number of 7th-class disciples was less than 3,000. And most of them were 3rd-class disciples, disciples between the 1st level of the Dragon Emperor to the 6th level of the Dragon Emperor. One had to know that many dragon martial artists' compatibility with the divine dragon blood could actually only cultivate to the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor. After reaching the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor, they would encounter a bottleneck. Even if they managed to break through to the 6th level of the Dragon Emperor, they would still only be 3rd-class disciples. To break through to the status of 4th-class disciples could be said to be extremely difficult. Therefore, the 3rd-class disciples added up to more than 300,000 people. Among them, the number of 1st-class disciples, 2nd-class disciples, and 3rd-class disciples was about the same. After all, in the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land, there were many talented dragon martial artists. 1st-class disciples were all new disciples, and 2nd-class disciples were considered to have entered for a period of time. Hundreds of thousands of dragon martial artists gathered outside the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Tower. It looked like a black mass, denser than the battlefield. All the dragon warriors were flying in human form. In the dragon god's macro world, there are a total of 122 holy lands. This time, taking advantage of the end of the war, the Holy Lands are finally going to have a large-scale challenge battle between the disciples. All disciples are allowed to participate in the upcoming battle. We will send our disciples in batches to participate in the invitation battle. According to the ranking of the disciples, the first-class disciples will compete first. In the center of the dragon god's macro world, there is a dragon soul sacred tower. That dragon soul sacred tower is where you will compete. This is not only a competition, but also a chance for you to improve. The Dragon Soul Sacred Tower is the burial place of countless ancestors of the dragon martial artists. The essence, energy, and spirit of many powerful ancestors of the dragon martial artists are lingering in it. Everyone who enters the Dragon Soul Sacred Tower will gain more or less enlightenment. Of course, everyone's comprehension will be different. As for how much, it will depend on your own comprehension ability. Dragon Soul Holy Tower. This was a holy land of the Dragon God clan. Normally, the Dragon Soul Sacred Tower would not be open at all because there were many ancestors of the dragon martial artists buried there. Letting the dragon martial artists enter at will was an act of desecration. But this time, the four clans attacked the dragon gods together, which brought great pressure to the dragon gods as a whole. So this time, an exception was made to open the Dragon Soul Sacred Tower as a place for the disciples of the various holy lands of the dragon gods to compete. The inside of the Dragon Soul Sacred Tower could be said to be another space. It was a small world. There were many functional formations inside, and it was the most suitable place for the disciples of the Holy Lands to compete. All first-class disciples will compete first. According to each disciple's performance, the Dragon Soul Sacred Tower will give a certain evaluation score. In the end, the 122 Holy Lands will be ranked according to the total score. Of course, the ranking of the first-class disciples is not particularly important. It only counts for 1 point. But you must not underestimate it. Our 5 extreme profound ice holy land absolutely cannot be ranked at the bottom of the 122 holy lands. To tell the truth, we don't know how strong the other holy lands are right now. All I can say is that everyone must fight with all their might. The Dragon Soul Sacred Tower was a sacred place. The evaluation score would definitely be very fair. So, the ranking of the 122 Holy Lands this time was a matter that concerned the honor of the Holy Lands. The overall strength of the 5 extreme dark ice Holy Land could be seen through this time. The matches of the first-class disciples will take 3 days. In other words, the matches of the first-class disciples will take 3 days. It is not that the matches will be over in 3 days. Inside the Dragon Soul Holy Land, there are formations related to time that can turn these 3 days into 30 days. The actual time that you will experience is 30 days. Everyone, the honor of the 5 extreme dark ice holy land will depend on you to defend it. In front of the 5 extreme dark ice holy tower, several young elders were giving exciting speeches. In that case, as a 5th-class disciple, my match will be in about half a month. Kong Shin-mu thought to himself. Right now, he was in the crowd, sensing the dragon warriors around him. He really did not sense any particularly strong existences. After all, the 5th-class disciples were basically at the peak of the Dragon Emperor, which was also the 9th level of the Dragon Emperor. Although this level was similar to his, in reality, Kong Shin-mu's strength had already reached the 3rd level of the Super Divine Dragon. This had completely surpassed the 5th-class disciples. He had even reached the limit of a 6th-class disciple. It is said that if you become the first among the 5th-class disciples, you will be qualified to challenge the winner of the 6th-class disciples. If I succeed in the challenge, the bonus points for the 5th-class disciples will definitely be very high, right? Kong Shin-mu continued thinking to himself. Although he did not have much sense of belonging to the 5 extreme dark ice holy land, his master, the Dragon Emperor Shi, was also a member of the 5 extreme dark ice holy land. As a disciple, it was normal for him to fight for his master's honor. Of course, it could not be said that there were no strong existences in the other holy lands. It was said that in this war, Kong Shin-mu was not the only strong existence that emerged. There were also many dragon warriors whose actual combat strength far exceeded their cultivation level. These would all be strong opponents for Kong Shin-mu. For example, among the 5th-class disciples of the 5 extreme dark ice holy land, Kong Shin-mu felt a few suppressed auras. These auras were actually very strong, but they were very low-key. Such dragon warriors definitely existed in the other 5 extreme dark ice Holy Land. Chapter 5076. Following that, the grand arranged battle between the Holy Lands began just like that. Kong Shin-mu naturally returned to the Gu family residence in the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice City to cultivate and consolidate his cultivation with Gu Xinyue and the others. Xueqi was also a disciple of the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Holy Land. She was at the peak of the Dragon Emperor's level of cultivation, and had long been a 5th-class disciple of the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Holy Land. It was just that she had been sent to the Dragon Martial Continent to be a mentor at the Dragon Martial Academy. Therefore, Xueqi would naturally participate in the battle between the Holy Lands. The rewards were plentiful. As long as one was in the top 1,000 among the disciples of the same level, one would be able to obtain the rewards. If one was in the top 100, the rewards would be considerable. There were a total of 122 Holy Lands participating in the battle. Therefore, to enter the top 100, one would basically have to be the strongest disciple of each Holy Land. With so many experts gathered together, one could imagine how difficult it would be to stand out from the crowd. Kong Shin-mu was naturally not worried. As a 5th-class disciple, he was already considered outstanding among the 5th-class disciples. Few could compare to him. Especially after his formless weapon, the Chen Xing, was forged. In the next few days, Kong Shin-mu, Xueqi, and Gu Xinyue stayed at the Gu family residence. They cultivated together and even attacked the dark creatures on the reverse side of the continent in the starry pocket world. Those dark creatures were very strong. Kong Shin-mu and the others directly found the dark creatures on the reverse side of the swamp. Through the shrine, they crossed to the reverse side of the continent and found dark creatures that were similar to them. During this process, Kong Shin-mu fought intensely and his compatibility with the formless weapon, the Chen Xing, kept increasing. He was also getting more and more comfortable with the Chen Xing. If Kong Shin-mu could only unleash half of its power when he first obtained the Chen Xing, now Kong Shin-mu could already unleash 60% of its power. Of course, this was only 60% of the power he could unleash at his current stage. After all, he was not at the level of Super Shenron. If he used Chen Xing, which was at the level of Super Shenron weapon, he could only exert 30% of its power at most. In other words, Kong Shin-mu could now exert 60% of Chen Xing's 30% power. This could already be considered very good. Of course, Kong Shin-mu would not be satisfied with this. He wanted to become even stronger when he stepped onto the stage. Unfortunately, it was not easy to fuse with the dragon weapon. Even with the devouring power, Kong Shin-mu could not easily achieve his goal. Therefore, it was almost impossible for Kong Shin-mu to rush for quick results. Fortunately, just this Chen Star alone was many times more powerful than ordinary top-notch divine spiritual dragon weapons. Kong Shin-mu's advantage among the 5th-grade disciples was too great. Even among the 122 Dragon Warrior Holy Lands, there were very few grade 5 disciples who could compare to Chen Xing in terms of dragon weapon. Just as Kong Shin-mu and the rest were cultivating, the competition between the 1st-grade disciples began. 1st-grade disciples were around the 1st to 2nd level of the Dragon Emperor. The competition between dragon martial artists of this level was not particularly eye-catching, but it was not completely unnoticed. After all, many of the 1st-grade disciples were new disciples, and the various Holy Lands still paid attention to the cultivation of new disciples. One must know that the minimum requirement to join a Holy Land was to have the blood essence compatibility of the Dragon Emperor's 5th level. Therefore, as long as one was a disciple of a Holy Land, reaching the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor was almost guaranteed. Hence, the competition between 1st-grade disciples and 2nd-grade disciples was a competition between new disciples. Those who could win these two competitions were basically likely to become the mainstay of the various Holy Lands in the future. Each competition lasted for 3 days, but for the contestants, it was equivalent to a month. In the Dragon Soul Holy Tower, the flow of time was slowed down, and many things could happen in these 30 days. The specific rules of the competition seemed to be different for each 1st-grade disciple. Therefore, Kong Shin-mu did not investigate the specific rules of the competition between 1st-grade disciples and 2nd-grade disciples. He only knew that 3 days after the start of the competition between the disciples of the 122 Holy Lands, the 5 extreme profound ice Holy Lands sent over some bad news. In the competition of the 1st-class disciples, the 5 extreme profound ice holy lands overall ranking was actually only 95th. This meant that the overall strength of the 5 extreme mysterious ice holy lands first-grade disciples was far inferior to the other holy lands. This meant that the new disciples of the 5 extreme dark ice holy land were useless. They were completely useless, to the point that they were a laughingstock. This was because among the 122 holy lands, there were some holy lands that had already declined long ago. These declining holy lands had too few new disciples, causing it to be very difficult for them to obtain any good results in such a large-scale competition. However, the 5 extreme mysterious ice holy land had never been considered to have declined, and because of Emperor Xi's divine dragon, they even had extremely strong prestige. In the end, they actually obtained 95th place in the first-grade disciple competition. This was simply astounding. Because of this, many experts of the dragon god race somewhat looked down on the 5 extreme mysterious ice holy land. So the 5 extreme mysterious ice holy land has also declined these past few years. There's still Emperor Xi's divine dragon that can be considered the top and can hold up the front, but in the end, these first-grade disciples are actually so weak? This is too disappointing. Originally, I wanted to send my son to the 5 extreme mysterious ice holy land, but now it looks like I'll have to go somewhere else. Many people's discussions brought enormous pressure to the 5 extreme mysterious ice holy land. Of course, this enormous pressure only came from the upper echelons of the 5 extreme mysterious ice holy land. As for the various 5 extreme mysterious ice holy land disciples, they were all filled with righteous indignation. Especially the second-grade disciples, all of them gritted their teeth, wanting to win glory for the 5 extreme mysterious ice holy land. Among the first-grade disciples, it said that the best result of our 5 extreme mysterious ice holy land is only 450th place. At least 3 of us second-grade disciples need to enter the top 100 to make up for this kind of humiliation. How many thousands and tens of thousands participated in the first-grade disciple trial? To be able to obtain 450th place was also something that was not easy. But this guy was the strongest among the first-grade disciples of the 5 extreme mysterious ice holy land. This was somewhat unjustifiable. No matter what, in the top 500 places, a holy land should have at least 3 to 5. This 5 extreme mysterious ice holy land actually only had one person enter the top 500. This undoubtedly showed that the first-grade disciples of the 5 extreme mysterious ice holy land were weak to the max. Chapter 5077. 3 days later. News from the Dragon's Soul Sacred Tower finally came back. In these 3 days, all 122 Sacred Lands second-class disciples competed on the same stage and competed with each other in many matches. Finally, the ranking was determined. The 5 extreme Black Ice Holy Lands second-class disciple was ranked 86th out of all 122 Sacred Lands. This news undoubtedly shocked all the dragon martialists of the 5 extreme Black Ice Holy Land. Originally, it was already hard to believe that a first-class disciple was ranked 95th out of all the Sacred Lands. But this time, a second-class disciple was actually only ranked 86th. Didn't this mean that this batch of newly recruited disciples of the 5 extreme Black Ice Holy Land were not good enough? This truly made the 5 extreme Black Ice Holy Land's face somewhat ugly. Although first-class disciples and second-class disciples were only dragon martialists below the Dragon Emperor's 5th level, dragon martialists of this level were the future strength of every sacred land. Now the 5 extreme Black Ice Holy Land was actually ranked 80th or 90th. Didn't this mean that the 5 extreme Black Ice Holy Land's future development potential would be much weaker than the other sacred lands? Of course, news about the 5 extreme Black Ice Holy Land basically only spread around here. After all, the 122 sacred lands basically only paid attention to the situation of their own sacred lands. There were so many other sacred lands. How could they understand and pay attention to each and every one of them? Although the 5 extreme Black Ice Holy Lands results weren't that great, there were many other sacred lands that were much worse than the 5 extreme Black Ice Holy Land. Those sacred lands also didn't have outsiders to mock them. It was just that they definitely felt worse in their hearts. Of course, there were still some sacred lands that were hostile to the 5 extreme Black Ice Holy Land that would sprinkle salt on their wounds at this time. Just in the past few days, there were 2 groups of people from the other 2 sacred lands that came to the 5 extreme Black Ice Holy Land to spout nonsense. It looked like they were here to travel, but in reality, they were here to show off and mock the 5 extreme Black Ice Holy Land. Of these 2 sacred lands, one was called the Wild Sand Glorious Sword Holy Land. It was the sacred cultivation ground of the wild sand glorious sword dragon, and had always had quite a bit of competition with the 5 extreme black ice holy land. Because they had competed for a long time, some old grudges were naturally born. Even now, the disciples of both sacred lands didn't like each other. The competition between the 122 holy lands this time could be considered to have encouraged the wild sand glorious sword holy land's arrogance a little. The Wild Sand Glorious Sword Holy Land's first-class disciples were ranked 8th out of all 122 holy lands, while the second-class disciples were ranked 11th. Although not all of them were in the top 10, their average ranking was more than a level higher than that of the 5 extreme Dark Ice Holy Land. It could even be said that the difference was like heaven and earth. This even meant that the overall strength of a second-class disciple of the 5 extreme Profound Ice Holy Land was probably inferior to a first-class disciple of the Wild Sand Glorious Sword Holy Land. Therefore, the dragon martialists of the Wild Sand Radiant Sword Sacred Land were all seething and inflated. This time, a young elder of the Wild Sand Glorious Sword Holy Land had led a team to the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Holy Land to show off their might. They had ridiculed the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Holy Land's dragon martialists in high spirits. Unfortunately, the first-grade and second-grade disciples of the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land weren't doing too well. This made the dragon martialists of the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land unable to retort even if they wanted to. They could only endure the ridicule. This made all the disciples of the 5 Extreme Profound Ice Holy Land feel extremely uncomfortable. There absolutely can't be any more mistakes in the upcoming competition between the third-grade disciples. Many people were thinking this in their hearts. At this time, the third-grade disciples of the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land also received the news. In the competition, they had to display their strongest techniques as much as possible. They couldn't hide anything. After all, they were all members of the dragon god race, so there was no point in hiding anything. They had to strive to obtain better results in the competition. Moreover, the various great teachers of the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land began to impart to their disciples so that they could grasp more of the techniques of their own dragon martial skills, so that they could perform better in the competition. With such a mobilization, the third-grade disciples set off together. Third-grade disciples were existences from the 5th to 6th levels of the Dragon Emperor. And Holy Land disciples of this level were no longer considered newcomers. Because dragon martialists who could cultivate to the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor were qualified to become Holy Land disciples. Therefore, there were many dragon martialists who could only cultivate to the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor and had been third-grade disciples for a very long time. Their strength and battle prowess were much stronger than first-grade and second-grade disciples. Therefore, it could be said that this competition was a competition between the core strength of the various holy lands. In addition, the various great teachers and powerhouses were all helping their disciples improve, allowing their battle skills to improve significantly. In the eyes of the dragon martialists of the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land, this competition wouldn't be too easy to have any problems. At the very least, they would be able to obtain a normal ranking. Regarding this, Kong Xin-mu didn't think too much about it. In any case, he didn't know anyone who was a third-grade disciple of the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land. Among the people he knew, he was a 5th-grade disciple, while Gu Xinyue was a 6th-grade disciple. Apart from the two of them, there were also Ran Ran, Liang Xiao, Xiao Yuhua, and Xiao Bai. The 4 of them were all 4th-grade disciples. In fact, they already had the strength of a 5th-grade disciple, but this year's 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Tower hadn't opened yet, so they hadn't become 5th-grade disciples yet. I can pay some attention to the competition between the 4th-grade disciples, Kong Xin-mu thought to himself. Whether it was Ran Ran, Liang Xiao, Xiao Yuhua, or Xiao Bai, their talent and battle prowess were all solid. Back when the martial dragon continent had faced the invasion of the demonic beasts, they had fought their way out through blood and fire. Their ability to react on the spot was definitely much stronger than that of ordinary dragon martialists. As for Kong Xin-mu himself, he was doing his best to improve himself. His 9th stage Extreme Dao Hui Dragon Burst had yet to reach the Extreme Sage Realm. In fact, it was just a little bit away from the Saint Realm. Therefore, improving himself as much as possible was more beneficial to him. And 3 days later, the results of the competition between the third-grade disciples were transmitted back. This time, because it wasn't a competition between the newly ascended disciples, the third-grade disciples of the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land finally broke the nightmare brought back by the first-grade and second-grade disciples. The 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land had obtained 33rd place in the competition between the 3rd grade disciples. 33rd place wasn't considered too bad. Although it was still a little lacking compared to the 12th place of the Wild Sand Holy Land. Compared to the competition between the 1st grade and 2nd grade disciples, the 3rd grade disciples were already much better. And at this time, a piece of news finally came out. It was said that the first match of the competition in the Dragon Soul Sacred Tower was a free-for-all. In the free-for-all, including the Wild Sand Holy Land, several other Holy Lands had actually joined hands to target the disciples of the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land. This was the reason why the 1st grade and 2nd grade disciples of the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land didn't have good results. And the reason why the 3rd grade disciples were like this was because the Dragon Soul Sacred Tower had already sensed this unfair situation. They were too ashamed to stay here. If there were no accidents, their Wild Sand Glorious Sword Sacred Lands points would probably fall below the top 50 in the next 3 matches. It might even be worse. It would be very difficult for them to stabilize their position. It could be said that they had shot themselves in the foot. And it was not only the Wild Sand Glorious Sword Holy Land that suffered from this. After all, they weren't the only ones targeting the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land. Moreover, many other Holy Lands had suffered the same fate as the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land. After all, of the 122 Holy Lands, there were many Holy Lands that had conflicts with each other. The 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land wasn't the only Holy Land that had been targeted. Of course, the supreme experts of the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Holy Land were also puzzled, including Emperor Xueqi and the Divine Dragon. They only knew that there was quite a bit of competition between them and the Wild Sand Glorious Sword Holy Land, but they hadn't offended the other Holy Lands. After secretly asking around, they discovered the truth. It turned out that the Wild Sand Glorious Sword Holy Land and the other Holy Lands had joined forces. After joining forces, the other Holy Lands helped to target the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land, and the Wild Sand Glorious Sword Holy Land also helped to deal with the other Holy Lands' targets. They could be said to have joined forces and helped each other. No wonder the Dragon Soul Holy Tower punished these Holy Lands so heavily. It turned out that they had targeted several Holy Lands at the same time, causing them to receive a poor result. No matter what, the matter was finally resolved now. As the punishments of the Wild Sand Glorious Sword Holy Land and the other Holy Lands were announced, everyone was delighted. Even the entire Dragon God Clan Great World talked about these Holy Lands with disdain and contempt. Too shameless. They actually joined forces with several Holy Lands to target their own competitors? Fortunately, the Dragon Soul Holy Tower represented the ancestors of the entire Dragon God Clan. It had its own consciousness and placed the development of the Dragon God Clan as its top priority. It could be said to have zero tolerance for this kind of situation. Since that was the case, Ran and the others no longer felt any psychological pressure. Originally, they had thought that the disciples of the other Holy Lands were really strong. But now, it seemed that they really didn't need to worry too much. With their strength, it was more than enough for them to handle the 4th-class disciples with ease. They could even bring extremely high honor, ranking, and points to the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land. When the competition for the 4th-class disciples was about to begin, even Kong Shinmu was a little nervous. If the first 3 competitions had insignificant influence on the overall ranking of the Holy Lands, then starting from the competition for the 4th-class disciples, the points obtained by each Holy Land in the competition were important enough to even affect the final ranking. Jiang Xinwu was a member of the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land. Moreover, he had seen the Wild Sand Shining Sword Holy Land's dragon martial practitioners who had come to show off their strength. Thus, he naturally hoped that the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land could obtain a better result. The 5th-class disciples have me. As long as I can obtain first place among the 5th-class disciples, then our 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land can at least be ranked in the top 3. The first place of each competition had a great influence, and the total number of points awarded was also extremely shocking. At the very least, it could increase the total points of the Holy Land by a huge amount. And Kong Shinmu was determined to obtain first place among the 5th-class disciples. Moreover, if he could participate in the competition for the 6th-class disciples, he could also obtain an additional point and contribute more to the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land. Therefore, he wasn't worried about the 5th-class disciples, but was rather concerned about the competition for the 4th-class disciples. For the disciples participating in the competition, they had to stay in the Dragon Soul Sacred Tower for a month, but for outsiders, it was only 3 days. After waiting for 3 days, the Dragon Soul Sacred Tower finally announced the results of the competition for the 4th class disciples. The results of the competition for the 4th class disciples. The 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land was ranked 4th. When this news came out, many of the Dragon Martial practitioners who paid more attention to the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land, and those who didn't pay much attention to the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land were all shocked. The 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land's original ranking wasn't good. How did it suddenly jump to 4th place? Chapter 5079. The 4th class disciples had returned. The 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land's Dragon Martial practitioners welcomed them as if they were heroes. Very quickly, the news spread. This time, the 4th class disciples were able to obtain 4th place mainly because of several key figures. And the most important one was Ran Ran. Ran Ran had now reached the peak Divine Dragon Inheritance Blood Essence grade of the Dragon Emperor 9th layer. Her battle prowess far surpassed all the Dragon Martial practitioners of the Dragon Emperor level. In the mixed battle of the 4th class disciples, Ran Ran defeated 77 opponents by herself, bringing an extremely high number of points to the 5 Extreme Mysterious Ice Holy Land. And in the ranking battle that followed, Ran Ran finally obtained 2nd place. Among all the 4th class disciples of the Holy Land, Ran Ran obtained 2nd place. Unfortunately, she did not obtain 1st place. However, the 1st place disciple had only defeated Ran Ran by a slight margin. In summary, Ran Ran did not have a very strong dragon weapon. Her dragon weapon had not been fused to a very high level, so she could not display too much power. At the very least, compared to her opponents, she was still quite lacking. One had to know that her final opponent was a rather old Dragon Emperor powerhouse. That powerhouse was at the 9th layer of the Dragon Emperor and possessed extremely terrifying strength. That was a powerhouse that could explore a permanent intermediate level ruin. Moreover, there was more than one such powerhouse. Ran Ran had already defeated many such powerhouses and finally obtained 2nd place. It could be said that Ran Ran's battle prowess was already very terrifying, even comparable to Kong Xin Mu. However, what Kong Xin Mu did not expect was that in the battle of the 4th class disciples, there were too many peak 9th layer existences of the Dragon Emperor. Logically speaking, the 4th class disciples were all at the 7th to 8th layer of the Dragon Emperor. Logically speaking, when the Holy Tower raised the ranks of the disciples once a year, some strong existences would definitely be able to become higher-ranked disciples and obtain more cultivation resources. But now, it seemed that there were still many Dragon Warrior disciples in the Holy Land who did not put in any effort to raise the level of their disciples. For example, the opponent who defeated Ran Ran already had the strength of a grade 5 disciple, and could even fight a grade 6 disciple. In the end, he was still a 4th class disciple. They couldn't be said to have violated the rules. After all, the rules set by the Dragon Soul Holy Tower were to allow Dragon Warriors of the same rank to compete on the same stage. The other party was indeed a grade 4 disciple, so there was nothing he could do about it. Moreover, Kong Xin Mu did not have the qualifications to criticize him on this point. His current strength had long since reached the level of a grade 6 disciple, perhaps even the peak of a grade 6 disciple, but he was still a grade 5 disciple in the end. Every Holy Land was trying their best to transfer their stronger disciples to lower-level places, so that their own Holy Land could obtain better results in this competition. Of course, he couldn't just casually transfer the rank of his disciples. There were also those with Dragon Emperor's peak cultivation, who wanted to participate in the 1st grade disciple to 3rd grade disciple competition. In the end, they were blocked by the Dragon Soul Holy Tower, because they were temporarily transferred disciples. The Dragon Soul Holy Tower had already seen through this point. Moreover, although the division of disciples was based on rank, there was still a cultivation limit. For example, a 1st grade disciple was the grade of the Dragon Emperor's Divine Dragon Inheritance from the 1st to the 2nd level. Therefore, it was impossible for the participants to surpass the 4th level of the Dragon Emperors. This was a relatively large limit, and also to ensure that there wouldn't be too many unfair situations in the competition. This time, Ran Ran obtained 2nd place in the 4th grade disciple competition. This could be said to be an extremely high honor, and it brought glory to the 5 Extreme Black Ice Holy Land. Apart from her, there were also many Dragon Warriors who obtained good results. Among them, Xiao Yuhua, Xiao Bai, and Liang Xiao obtained 7th, 8th, and 11th place respectively. It was precisely because of this that the 5 Extreme Black Ice Holy Land could actually reach 4th place among all the Holy Lands in this time's 4th grade disciple competition. Unfortunately, Ran didn't obtain 1st place. Otherwise, the 5 Extreme Black Ice Holy Lands' overall results would probably directly jump to the top 2. The 4th grade disciples returned, each and every one of them in high spirits. And Ran, who obtained 2nd place overall, had now become a celebrity in the 5 Extreme Black Ice Holy Land. Originally, although Ran was very talented, she didn't have a chance to display it. Especially with so many disciples in the 5 Extreme Black Ice Holy Land, who would pay attention to her? But now, this competition let everyone know of Ran's existence. Of course, the upper echelons of the 5 Extreme Black Ice Holy Land had naturally long been paying attention to Ran. This was because Ran's divine dragon blood essence compatibility was too high, and she could directly break through to a supreme level without encountering a bottleneck. This was rarely seen in the history of the dragon god's great world. And this time, Ran's performance made the upper echelons and elders of the 5 Extreme Black Ice Holy Land feel gratified. Ran. He was indeed an expert with extraordinary talent. In the future, she would probably become an important figure in the 5 Extreme Black Ice Holy Land. In comparison, Xiao Bai and the other 2 weren't as dazzling, but it was already very good. After all, they had only joined the 5 Extreme Black Ice Holy Land for less than 2 years. The other disciples that had joined the 5 Extreme Black Ice Holy Land for 10 years had not achieved such dazzling achievements. It could be said that many dragon martial artists would shine in this competition and obtain the favor of powerhouses. And when the 4th grade disciples returned, it was time for the 5th grade disciples to set off. Kong Xinmu only briefly met with Ran and the others before leaving. As a 5th grade disciple of the 5 Extreme Black Ice Holy Land, he was about to step onto the next competition. Moreover, among the 5th grade disciples, he didn't know anyone that was too strong. It could be said that he had cultivated in the 5 Extreme Black Ice Holy Land for very few days, so he naturally didn't know anyone else. However, he was confident that he could obtain 1st place in the following competition among the 5th grade disciples. I have to obtain 1st place. If I can't obtain 1st place, then only death awaits me when I head to the permanent mid-grade ruins. Kong Xinmu was especially strict with himself because he knew very well that if he wanted to obtain benefits in the permanent mid-grade ruins and preserve his life, the difficulty would be far greater than obtaining 1st place in this competition. After all, a competition was just a competition, but the exploration of the permanent mid-grade ruins was extremely risky. If he wasn't careful, he could die inside. Therefore, before that, Kong Xinmu wanted to use this competition to test himself and improve himself so that he could better deal with the exploration of the permanent mid-grade ruins. What kind of inheritance would there be in Emperor Wa's ruins? Kong Xinmu didn't know, but he had to give it a try. Otherwise, how would he improve his starry sky small world? The 5 Extreme Black Ice Holy Land's several thousand 5th grade disciples embarked on the journey together with Kong Xinmu. Chapter 50-80 Dragon Soul Holy Tower. The Holy Tower, which stood on the top of the mountain, appeared in front of Kong Xinmu. It was surrounded by extremely rich dragon mark energy, which even formed a dragon mark energy storm, whistling around the Holy Tower. Kong Xinmu and the others looked up at the Dragon Soul Holy Tower, but they couldn't see the top at all. In the clouds, there was also endless dragon mark energy. The dragon mark energy was extremely wild and violent, not the type that could be directly absorbed by dragon warriors. It should be noted that this Dragon Soul Holy Tower was the place where the real divine dragon had fallen. It was the holy land of the holy lands in the macro world of the dragon gods. In the past, it was not open to the public. It was only recently that the big shots of the dragon gods held a competition between the disciples of the holy lands. It is said that if you can get the heart of the dragon soul, you can cultivate in this Dragon Soul Holy Tower. Yes, if you cultivate in the Dragon Soul Holy Tower, I can absorb all the rich and violent dragon mark energy around. Don't think so much. This is a power that even the supreme seniors may not be able to absorb. It is easier said than done to get the heart of the dragon soul. Everyone was talking about it. When they saw the Dragon Soul Holy Tower, they were all extremely shocked and emotional. And Kong Xinmu also knew that the heart of the dragon soul was a legend from the Dragon Soul Holy Tower. As long as you could get the recognition of the Dragon Soul Holy Tower, you could get the heart of the dragon soul and get the qualification to cultivate in the Dragon Soul Holy Tower. Such people were called Dragon Soul Dragon Warriors. Dragon Soul Dragon Warriors, every one of them could become a supreme super existence and lead the whole dragon gods. This was the real peak power of the dragon gods. A dragon martial artist of the same level, a dragon martial artist with a dragon spirit, could probably fight 3 to 5 people at once. Their combat power was extremely strong, and the most important thing was that they controlled most of the cultivation resources of the dragon gods and ruled the whole dragon gods world. There were a total of 122 supreme holy lands of the dragon gods. The holy lords of the holy lands were actually under the command of the Dragon Soul Dragon Warriors. How many Dragon Soul Dragon Warriors were there in total? No one knew. But as long as they were Dragon Soul Dragon Warriors, they represented the ruling position in the dragon gods world. Becoming a dragon martial artist of the dragon soul was the dream of every dragon martial artist in the great world of the dragon gods. It was a pity that this dream could only be realized once every 100 years. In the whole world of the dragon gods, there might not even be a Dragon Soul Dragon Warrior in 100 years. From this, it could be seen that the status of the Dragon Spirit Dragon martial artists was extremely respected. Kong Shinmu and the other 5th-class disciples of the 5 Extreme Profound Ice Holy Land arrived in front of the Dragon Soul Sacred Tower. Looking at it from afar, they felt the power of the Dragon Soul envelop them all. Everything in front of him had turned into nothingness. None of the 5th-ranked disciples had been led here by a space-time formation. Shortly after, as the Dragon Soul power enveloped them, they fell into a layer of clouds. From now on, all of you are in the Dragon Soul Holy Tower. In the Dragon Soul Holy Tower, all of you will experience 3 battles of experience. The first round will last for 14 days. This training battle is an elimination battle. The rules were out. Kong Shinmu felt that all the 5th-class disciples of the 5 Extreme Profound Ice Holy Land were far away from him. Now, he was the only one left in the entire space. He listened to the Dragon Soul voice around him and learned the rules of the next 14 days of training battles. This was a chaotic battle that would last 14 days. And this chaotic battle did not take place on a platform or a martial arts arena. Instead, it took place in one of the small worlds of the Dragon Soul Holy Tower. All the 5th-class disciples of the Holy Lands participating in this training battle would be divided into different small worlds. Each small world would have 1,000 people. For the training battles of the 5th-class disciples, the Dragon Soul Holy Tower had prepared a total of 800 small worlds. Every small world was in existence with an extremely vast territory. And each small world would have 1,000 dragon martial artists entering to train. They would fight each other when they met, and the winner would be the king. Out of 1,000 people, only a maximum of 5 people would emerge victorious and enter the second round of training. First were the 3 people who survived to the end. Second were the 2 people who killed the most enemies. If there were duplicates among them, the quota would be postponed. In other words, in each small world, 5 people could advance to the next round. And to advance to the next round, one had to kill the most enemies or survive to the end. In the small world, the dragon martial artist disciples of the Holy Lands all fought with phantoms. They were not real entities. The Dragon Soul Holy Tower had already copied all the Dragon God Clan's strength of the dragon martial artists into the phantoms. Therefore, dying in the Dragon Soul Holy Tower was not considered real death. And in the Dragon Soul Holy Tower, one could only use the strength of the Dragon God Clan. For example, Kong Shinmu's power of the Starry Sky Inheritance could not be copied in the Dragon Soul Holy Tower. Therefore, Kong Shinmu could only use the strength of the Divine Dragon Clan. Chapter 5081. Not long after, Kong Shinmu appeared in a small world. This small world was a dense forest environment. When he opened his eyes, he was surrounded by a dense green forest, surrounded by towering trees that were thousands of feet tall. These towering trees looked extremely tough, and it was difficult for the 5th-class disciples to destroy them with their abilities. There was no need to worry about damaging the terrain if they fought in this small world. However, Kong Shinmu did not know how big this small world was. The first round of the competition will last for a total of 14 days, and all 1,000 disciples from various supreme sacred grounds will participate. If 1,000 people want to finish fighting in 14 days, based on the size of the small world, about 70 people will be eliminated every day. In other words, this small world should be quite big, but it should not be so big that others could not even find it. Kong Shinmu pondered in his heart. At the same time, his entire body had been completely hidden. He first tried and found that his power had indeed changed. The power that belonged to the star inheritance could no longer be used. After coming to this small world, all the power that did not belong to the Dragon God clan would be removed. To be precise, this small world only replicated the power of the dragon warriors. For example, Kong Shinmu could now feel that his cultivation was at the 9th level of the reincarnation tribulation state, and he also had the grade of the Dragon God inheritance blood essence of the 9th level of the Dragon Emperor. This was the power that he could use now. Of course, his formless weapon, Chen Xing, was also replicated. It seemed that the ability of the Dragon Soul Sacred Tower was far beyond Kong Shinmu's imagination. After all, the formless weapon had not appeared in this world for a long time, but to the Dragon Soul Sacred Tower, it seemed to be a very common thing. Kong Shinmu hid his body and tested his power. He found that compared to the outside world, there was not much difference, except that he lacked the power of the star inheritance. If I just want to win, I can rely on my concealment ability to survive all the way to the end. It's a pity that I still need to be the first in the number of enemies killed. Ran Ran had defeated 77 opponents and was already in the top ranks among the 4th-class disciples. And now, Kong Shinmu should at least have Ran Ran as his goal, right? If Kong Shinmu were to hide and launch a sneak attack in such a small world's forest, he believed that ordinary people would not be able to withstand it. Kill at least 3 opponents every day. Kong Shinmu thought. He familiarized himself with his current state. After all, he was a clone, so he was afraid that he would not be able to get used to it. After confirming that his strength had not changed much, he finally began to move. The small world was silent. For the time being, Kong Shinmu did not sense the presence of any opponents in the surroundings. It seemed that everyone who came to this small world was extremely careful in hiding themselves. However, with Kong Shinmu's powerful senses, no one could hide from him. If he was too far away, Kong Shinmu's senses would not be too accurate. However, as long as Kong Shinmu got close, he could easily sense any hidden existence. Kong Shinmu concealed himself and transformed into the form of a black dragon. He flew for thousands of miles in the dense forest and finally sensed the presence of a dragon martialist 1,000 miles away from where he appeared. This dragon martialist was also a 5th-class disciple, and he did not know which supreme sacred land he came from. In any case, it was not the 5 Extremes Dark Ice Sacred Land. This was because in a small world, dragon martialist disciples from the same sacred land would sense each other and avoid killing each other. The dragon martialist disciple that Kong Shinmu sensed was at the 9th level of the Dragon Emperor. However, Kong Shinmu could sense that his strength was not particularly strong. This guy hid himself and quietly waited in a valley. When Kong Shinmu came over, he almost missed him. This was because this fellow made use of the terrain, and even used a concealment formation to hide himself in a more secure way. Unfortunately, Kong Shinmu still discovered him. The Ink Dragon Beast's fusion ability was not something to be scoffed at. Immediately after, Kong Shinmu headed into the valley. He soon realized that it would not be easy to kill the other party. This was because the other party was completely hidden in the depths of the valley, and there were too many formations set up outside the valley. Even Kong Shinmu could not enter the valley without triggering these formations. If he traveled through the void, the other party would still be able to discover his tracks. Therefore, the only path left for Kong Shinmu was to force his way through. However, Kong Shinmu did not intend to act rashly. This was because he sensed that there were other dragon martialist disciples rushing over from afar. The direction was not direct, but as long as the other party approached, the hidden dragon martialist disciples would definitely encounter the other party. At that time, perhaps Kong Shinmu could wait for them to confront each other and directly appear to kill 2 of them. Therefore, Kong Shinmu continued to hide. His concealment ability far exceeded that of ordinary 5th-class disciples. It was impossible for anyone to discover his existence unless he took the initiative to attack. In that case, it would be impossible to continue hiding and he would definitely be exposed. Soon, the dragon martialist disciples in the distance seemed to have discovered the formation in this valley and flew over quickly. This fellow did not hide and seemed to be very confident in himself. Maybe it's a big fish? Kong Shinmu squinted his eyes and thought. Soon, when the other party approached, he finally sensed the other party's aura. It turned out to be a Wild Sand Brilliant Sword Dragon's Inheritance Dragon Warrior. From the Wild Sand Brilliant Sword Sacred Ground. The Wild Sand Brilliant Sword Sacred Ground was judged by the Dragon Soul Sacred Tower to only have half of the 5th class disciples enter the Dragon Soul Sacred Tower to participate in the trial due to their petty actions previously. This was a huge punishment, but it was also because of this that the Wild Sand Brilliant Sword Sacred Ground disciples who could enter the Dragon Soul Sacred Tower would not be too weak. After all, the Wild Sand Brilliant Sword Sacred Ground would definitely select stronger disciples to enter when only half of them could enter. When the other party flew over, it possessed an extremely powerful aura. In fact, it did not even hide like Kong Shin-mu. Instead, it flew over and swept towards the valley that was filled with formations. At this moment, the sky was filled with golden sword aura that suddenly swept over the valley, drowning the entire valley. The originally set-up formation was activated at this moment and collided with the Wild Sand Brilliant Sword Dragon's power. They collided with each other and formed a terrifying energy wave that spread towards the surroundings. Chapter 5082. The Wild Sand Brilliant Sword Sacred Grounds Dragon Martialist erupted with golden sword aura and broke through the layers of array formations. Immediately after, Kong Shin-mu sensed a fiery aura emanating from the valley. The Dragon Martialist hidden in the valley was a divine dragon transformed from a fire attribute Dragon Martialist. When it sensed the Wild Sand Brilliant Sword Dragon's attack, it didn't retreat at all. Instead, its entire body erupted with power. The power of flames collided with the Wild Sand Brilliant Sword Dragon's golden sword aura in mid-air, erupting with violent energy ripples that spread to the surroundings. However, it was clear that the Inferno Divine Dragon was no match for the Wild Sand Brilliant Sword Dragon. The golden sword aura of the Wild Sand Brilliant Sword Dragon suppressed its opponent the moment it clashed and extinguished all the flames. Now's the time. Kong Shin-mu, who had been hiding in the dark, finally decided to make a move. The Dark Divine Dragon's body suddenly appeared outside the valley, followed by the formless weapon, Chen Xing, offensive battle runes, convert. All the battle runes within Chen Xing were completely converted into offensive battle runes and erupted with unparalleled power. This super divine dragon weapon finally unleashed its full power for the first time. 9th Stage Extreme Roaring Dragon Blast. The effect of the heaven-shocking gem and the myriad crystals allowed the formless weapon, Chen Xing, to allow Kong Shin-mu's dragon martial technique to erupt with more than 18 times the power. In addition, with the dazzling effect of the 33 Sky Divine Plume, any of Kong Shin-mu's attacks could directly erupt with 9 attacks. This time, it was the 9 attacks of the 9th Stage Extreme Roaring Dragon Blast. A total of 81 Roaring Dragon Blasts were unleashed at this moment. Be it the Inferno Divine Dragon or the Wild Sand Brilliant Sword Dragon, they didn't expect there to be someone hiding in the side. By the time they sensed Kong Shin-mu's attack, it was already too late to defend or evade. After all, they were fighting each other fiercely. Kong Shin-mu's 81 Roaring Dragon Blasts arrived, leaving them no time to react. Accompanied by the roar of a black dragon, Kong Shin-mu's attack completely enveloped the two fellows. The ferocious power of the Roaring Dragon Blast engulfed them completely. At this moment, Kong Shin-mu could clearly feel his strength increasing. Chen Xing's formless weapon was an unparalleled dragon weapon for him. This was because he had not reached the Transcendent God level and could not unleash the full power of Chen Xing. Once he reached the Transcendent God level, he would be able to unleash 64 times the power of the dragon technique. Furthermore, the 33 divine feathers would be able to increase the intensity of his attacks. I wonder what kind of brilliant material Master and Moya will give me as a gift. Kong Shin-mu was looking forward to it. However, he would have to wait until he broke through to Super Shenron before he could receive their gifts. In any case, the dazzling transformation material was definitely not any weaker than the 33 Heavens Divine Plume. Of course, it was also possible that it had some special properties. In any case, Kong Shin-mu's formless weapon, the Celestial Star, had a total of 7 positions. Now, 3 of them had been given to refined gems, myriad crystals, and 33 Heavens Divine Plume. There were still 4 positions that could be used to dazzle the Celestial Star, making it even more powerful. At this moment, Kong Shin-mu hid and suddenly attacked, killing the Wild Sand Glorious Sword Dragon and the Inferno Divine Dragon in one move. The replicas of the 2 divine dragons dissipated under the power of Kong Shin-mu's Hui Dragon Blast and were eliminated from the trial. Without a doubt, the Wild Sand Glorious Sword Dragon was not weak. If it had fought against Kong Shin-mu head-on, it might not have been so easily defeated by Kong Shin-mu. Unfortunately, Kong Shinmu was hiding in the dark and took advantage of the battle to launch a sudden attack. No one could withstand that. Therefore, Kong Shinmu easily accepted the 2 heads. That was quite easy. It seems that 77 kills isn't too difficult. However, I should do better than Ran Ran. In the first round of the trial, there were a total of 1,000 people. Each of them was a 5th-class disciple of the various sacred grounds. They were all existences at the 9th level of the Dragon Emperor, and had at least the strength of the 9th level of the Dragon Emperor. There might even be 1st-level transcendental gods. Kong Shinmu's goal was to hide and kill as many opponents as possible. After killing the 2 of them, he continued to hide without any hesitation. He randomly chose a direction and flew out. In order to prevent the first trial from ending too quickly, the Dragon Soul Holy Tower had arranged for a relatively vast small world. At least, Kong Shinmu felt that it might be 1/5 the size of the Dragon Martial Continent. In such a large area, only 1,000 dragon martial artists were moving around. It looked very spacious. Therefore, it was not easy to encounter other dragon martial artists. However, Kong Shinmu had extremely strong perception. As long as he was a little closer, he would be able to sense the other party's existence. Therefore, it was more convenient for Kong Shinmu to find people. In addition to his concealment and sneak attacks, as long as he found someone, he would basically announce the other party's death. Of course, the dragon martial artists in this small world were all replicated phantoms and not real dragon martial artists. If they were killed, they would only be eliminated and would not be in danger. It had been 6 to 8 hours since Kong Shinmu entered and he had only seen the 2 guys just now. This small world was very big. It was so big that it was not easy to meet other people. Therefore, Kong Shinmu felt that it was already very impressive that Ran Ran could kill 77 people in 15 days in such an environment. I can't find anyone else. Why don't I just get someone else to look for me? Kong Shinmu suddenly had an idea. Since he could not find anyone else, why not let others come to him on their own accord? Anyway, for the current Kong Shinmu, even if he faced several 5th-class disciples at the same time, there would be no danger or pressure. In that case, he could just let others find him. Thinking about it this way, Kong Shinmu had an idea. Presumably, Ran Ran also used a similar method, right? Otherwise, her perception and concealment abilities were not as strong as Kong Shinmu's. It would really not be so easy to find 77 people to kill. Therefore, Kong Shinmu stopped flying right away. His black dragon body directly started to erupt with the 9th stage extreme Dao Hui dragon burst towards the surroundings. The effect of the 33 divine feathers was directly stimulated. The 9th stage extreme Dao Hui dragon burst directly became the 81 stage extreme Dao Hui dragon burst. Moreover, as Kong Shinmu continuously executed this method, the number of attacks that erupted would increase more and more, finally becoming 33 attacks. If it were others, it would be impossible to do this at all. After all, it consumed too much of their strength. But it did not matter to Kong Shinmu. The strength he consumed could completely rely on devouring the strength in the forest below to replenish. This large dense forest was filled with towering trees. Each tree possessed extremely tough vitality. Kong Shinmu devoured some to replenish his consumed strength. He could not even kill a single tree. The vitality of these giant trees was really too tenacious. Chapter 5083. The reason why Jiang Shenwu directly unleashed the 9th stage extreme Dao Horn Dragon Burst towards the empty space was entirely to create some commotion. If he were to hide in this place, no one would be able to discover his presence. Even if the other party was already near him, they wouldn't be able to discover his presence. However, if he didn't activate any concealment methods and directly flew above the area, other dragon martial artists would be able to easily discover him. And the current situation was, he kept unleashing the 9th stage ultimate dragon burst, emitting extremely intense energy waves. As long as the dragon martial artist's perception wasn't too poor, they would be able to easily discover his presence within a radius of 500 kilometers. In this way, there might be a lot of dragon warriors rushing in his direction. This was Kong Shinmu's idea. At such a crucial moment, taking the initiative to attract people over was much easier and time-saving than finding them one by one. Most importantly, Kong Shinmu could completely deal with many opponents at the same time, so he could do this. If it were someone else, some dragon martial artists might not even want to meet them and directly advance to the second round. Of course, Kong Shinmu definitely wouldn't be so casual. He had to kill the most people to advance to the second round. Only then could he obtain more points in the competition of the 5th class disciples and bring glory to the 5 extreme mysterious Ice Holy Land. Bringing glory was secondary. Honestly speaking, Kong Shinmu only wanted to obtain more cultivation resources. It was said that as long as one performed outstandingly in the Dragon Soul Sacred Tower, they would naturally receive many rewards. The rewards from the Dragon Soul Sacred Tower were already quite good. Not to mention the rewards that the 5 extreme mysterious Ice Holy Land would give after returning. One could imagine that a key disciple like Ran, who had brought glory to the 5 extreme profound Ice Holy Land and allowed the 5 extreme profound Ice Holy Land's 4th class disciple trial ranking to such a high position, would definitely receive a very good reward. It might even save her several years of cultivation time. In any case, Kong Shinmu had already begun his operation. His 9th stage Extreme Dao Flood Dragon burst out in all directions. Black dragon breath spread out in all directions, shaking the sky. As for Kong Shinmu, after exhausting his own strength, he would directly devour the large plants in the dense forest below, maintaining his body in the most perfect state at almost every moment. Finally, after an hour of Kong Shinmu's actions, Kong Shinmu sensed a dragon warrior flying towards him from afar. Kong Shinmu did not use the formless weapon, Chen Xing otherwise. If his power was too strong, many dragon warriors might not dare to come over. As for the power that Kong Shinmu had just unleashed, it only included the 9 layers of the 33 Heavens Divine Plume. The other powers of Chen Xing were not revealed at all. It was also because of this that he was able to attract some opponents. After all, if Kong Shinmu did not use the divine dragon weapon, Chen Xing, he did not have any strong means. At least in the eyes of many dragon warriors on the 9th floor of the Dragon Emperor, he was not very strong. He was not even at the level of most 5th class disciples. Of course, this was also because Kong Shinmu was completely concealing himself and deliberately suppressing his own strength. The 33 Heavens Divine Plume was able to create an even stronger aura and commotion due to its multiple attacks, attracting participants from further away. In any case, the first opponent had finally appeared. Kong Shinmu, who had transformed into a black divine dragon, narrowed his eyes in the direction of the other party. Soon, he saw a blue dot appear in the distant sky. Before long, the blue dot had become the image of a blue water dragon. It's a water attribute divine dragon. Kong Shinmu knew what was going on and directly headed in that direction. The other party flew over at an extremely fast speed. In Kong Shinmu's perception, the opponent was in existence at the peak of the Dragon Emperor, and he even had a divine dragon weapon in his hand. Of course, that divine dragon weapon was definitely not as strong as Kong Shinmu's Chen Xing, but it had already surpassed ordinary divine dragon weapons. This also meant that the other party's strength was likely to surpass ordinary 5th class disciples, and he could also be ranked at the top of the 5th class disciples trial. At least in Kong Shinmu's opinion, that strength was still a little threatening. 33 Heavens Divine Plume. Refined Sky Gem. Numerous crystals. As Kong Shinmu went up to meet the attack, these 3 brilliant effects were activated almost at the same time. At the same time, all the battle patterns in Kong Shinmu's Dragon Soldier Chen Xing were transformed into void battle patterns. This made Kong Shinmu's entire black dragon body seem to be wrapped in a layer of void power, and he crossed the void in an instant. This speed and distance had almost reached a completely unimaginable level. The power of the Dragon Soldier Chen Xing burst out at 20 times the speed, and they were all void battle patterns. This allowed Kong Shinmu to travel through the void at a speed completely beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Generally speaking, who would forge a battle weapon with 2,000 void battle patterns? Very, very few. Unless it was something like the instant magic ring that Kong Shinmu had. But even the instant magic ring only had less than 1,000 void battle patterns. Therefore, the power of Kong Shinmu's Dragon Soldier Chen Xing was already completely incomparable to that of a supreme god-grade divine dragon weapon. Kong Shinmu's attack was completely unexpected for the opponent. And when Kong Shinmu traveled through the void, he directly erupted with the 9th Extreme Dao Horn Dragon burst above his opponent's head. Moreover, it was the full power of the 33 Heavens Divine Plume. 33 attacks, in addition to the original 9th Extreme Dao Horn Dragon burst. A total of nearly 300 pitch-black horn dragon bursts appeared. It wasn't without reason that Kong Shinmu had been using the 9th Extreme Dao Horn Dragon burst and the 33 Heavens Divine Plume all this time. The 33 Heavens Divine Plume had to accumulate a certain amount of energy before it could truly erupt with 33 attacks. Kong Shinmu had continuously released the 9th Extreme Dao Horn Dragon Burst to accumulate energy for the 33 Heavens Divine Plume. Now, this energy directly erupted. The 300 pitch black horn dragon bursts enveloped the attacking blue water dragon from all directions. The opponent didn't even have time to react. The entire body of the blue water dragon had already been covered by the 300 horn dragon bursts, and the terrifying power instantly killed it. The blue water dragon directly turned into a flash of white light and dissipated from the small world. And Kong Shinmu directly received a score. This was the 3rd opponent he had killed. According to this efficiency, it's not bad? I can kill one in an hour. I hope everything goes smoothly from now on. Kong Shinmu thought to himself. At the same time, the blue water dragon that he had eliminated was incomparably dumbfounded. It had originally come to hunt, but in the end, it hadn't even seen the shadow of its opponent before it was ambushed and instantly killed. A black dragon? Chapter 5084. Of course, Kong Shinmu didn't care about the thoughts of the dragon martial artists that he sent out. The survival of the fittest was one of the most simple laws of this world. Judging from the situation in the small world of the Dragon Soul Holy Tower, the slightly stronger ones might not be able to make it to the end. Only the cautious ones and the strongest ones might be able to make it to the end. Being stronger than most people wouldn't work. Only by being stronger than everyone else could one emerge victorious in the end. Now, Kong Shinmu could basically say that he was definitely the strongest among the 1,000 dragon martial artists in the entire small world. After he sent out the first dragon martial artist disciple, he attracted another dragon martial artist disciple in the next 4 hours, who was also killed by him and sent out of the game. In the 6th hour, 2 dragon martial artists arrived almost at the same time, forming a 3-way situation. Unfortunately, in Kong Shinmu's opinion, this wasn't an equal 3-way situation at all. Even if the 2 of them joined forces, they wouldn't be a match for him. Hence, Kong Shinmu sent the 2 of them out of the game almost at the same time. He easily killed his opponent. A day had passed. The killing in the entire small world would last for 15 days. According to the results of the first half of the day, the number of opponents that Kong Shinmu could kill in the end would probably be about the same as Ran Rant's. Therefore, Kong Shinmu still had to think of a way. Clone. It wasn't that Kong Shinmu didn't have the ability to clone because there were shadow battle runes in the Chen Xing Dragon Weapons battle runes. Shadow battle runes were a method that could create clones. However, if he created clones, Kong Shinmu's combat power would decline. If he encountered some stronger opponents, he might not be able to crush and kill them, which would be a waste of time. If he wasted time, it would greatly reduce his efficiency in killing enemies. If clones don't work, I can only create a bigger commotion to attract more dragon martial artists here. Kong Shinmu was still thinking in this direction. Soon he thought of an idea. He was just one person messing around in this place, so he really couldn't make much noise. Although a normal dragon martial artist would be able to sense within 1,000 miles, the other party might not necessarily come over. Therefore, Kong Shinmu intended to make a bigger scene. It was a pity that the power of inheritance couldn't be used in the Dragon Soul Tower. Otherwise, things would be much simpler. No matter what, Kong Shinmu still came up with a solution. Although the doppelganger of Kong Shinmu condensed by the shadow battle runes couldn't be used to kill the enemy, it could be used to lure the enemy. It was equivalent to creating a bigger commotion. Kong Shinmu then used the power of shadow battle runes. All the battle runes in the Chen Xing Dragon Weapon transformed into shadow battle runes, directly condensing 20 black dragon avatars. These doppelgangers all had 1/10 of Kong Shinmu's power. This was a level weaker than the Dragon Emperor's peak. They were about the 8th level of the Dragon Emperor. But these doppelgangers were originally used to lure the enemy, so it didn't matter if they were weaker. Kong Shinmu sent these doppelgangers to scatter in all directions and then let them fly 500 miles away. They began to erupt with power towards the surroundings and cast the 9th Extreme Tao Hui Dragon Burst. The movement of these doppelgangers couldn't be transmitted so far. However, the number of dragon martial artists that could be attracted by these 20 doppelgangers in all directions was obviously several times more than before. In less than 15 minutes, Kong Shinmu sensed that one of the doppelgangers had been attacked. Then, he let the doppelganger escape in his direction. The plan to lure the enemy in was simply a walk in the park for Kong Shinmu, and there was no hindrance in implementing it. When the doppelganger returned to Kong Shinmu's side, Kong Shinmu directly withdrew all these doppelgangers, and then the Chen Xing dragon weapon returned to the form of attack runes. 9th Extreme Tao Hui Dragon Burst. 33 Heavenly Divine Feathers. A total of nearly 300 Hui Dragon Bursts swept out, and the dragon martial artist disciple that was chasing after the seriously injured doppelganger was blasted away by Kong Shinmu almost without any reaction. The 5th-class disciples of the various sacred grounds weren't particularly strong. A 5th-class disciple was only at the peak of the Dragon Emperor, but Kong Shinmu's combat strength as a dragon martial artist had already reached the level of the Transcendent God Stage 2 in the Inheritance of the Dragon Gods. This made the 5th-class disciples of the Supreme Sacred Grounds no match for Kong Shinmu at all. They couldn't even withstand a single blow from him. Therefore, in such a first round of trials, Kong Shinmu was simply invincible. It could even be said that there weren't many 5th-class disciples who could fight against Kong Shinmu, let alone the 1,000 disciples who had been separated. In all 800 small worlds, there were dragon martial artist disciples who might be able to fight against Kong Shinmu. Those were all veteran 5th-class disciples whose strength exceeded that of 5th-class disciples by quite a bit. Some had even reached the level of 6th-class disciples, but they hadn't returned to the sacred grounds to improve their disciple levels. If they were at the peak of the Dragon Emperor, they would be supreme powerhouses who explored some permanent intermediate ruins. They might also be at the first or second level of the Transcendent God Stage. On the other hand, the Dragon Soul Holy Pagoda arranged for 1,000 people to be divided into groups, so they naturally wouldn't place two powerhouses in the same small world. That would be unfair to both parties. Of course, it was nothing to Kong Shinmu. However, in such a small world, there was basically no opponent worthy of Kong Shinmu's attention, which made him feel a little bored. Of course, although he was bored, Kong Shinmu's attitude was still very proper. He was careful when facing any opponent, and he strived to kill his opponent in one blow. He never gave his opponent any chance to resist. The number of dragon martial artist disciples attracted by his clone was much more than before. Gradually, the commotion caused by Kong Shinmu became bigger and bigger. He directly sent his clone out to self-destruct 500 miles away. This way, the commotion created was obviously bigger. The number of dragon martial artist disciples attracted also increased. Kong Shinmu had even faced a situation where he was surrounded by 5 dragon martial artist disciples. Unfortunately, Kong Shinmu's battle prowess far exceeded this level. Even if the 5 of them joined forces to attack him, they were no match for him and were killed one by one. When the dragon martial artist disciples of this small world were eliminated, they were all dumbfounded. A black dragon? I was also sent out by a black dragon. I was attracted by a heavily injured black dragon, but I didn't expect it to be bait. After the dragon martial artist disciples of this small world were sent out, they were all gathered at one place. They discussed with each other and realized that most of them were actually sent out by a black dragon. This made them extremely shocked. In that case, this black dragon has already killed more than 100 people? Chapter 5085. In 5 days, he had killed more than 100 people in the small world. After some discussion, the 5th-class disciples from the various sacred lands looked gloomy. They were not afraid of someone who was too strong, and they were prepared for it. However, it was really hopeless for someone to be this strong. In just 5 days, he had killed more than 100 dragon martial artists of the same level. This had never happened in the previous competitions of the 4th-class disciples. In fact, no one had even achieved half of that. How did he do it? It was too terrifying. The protagonist of their discussion, Kong Shinmu, did not care about what they thought. In any case, as long as Jiang Shenwu killed enough opponents, it would be fine. In that small world, as time passed, the number of martial dragon disciples that Jiang Shenwu could wait for grew fewer and fewer. Perhaps it was because of the commotion that he had caused. Many people began to observe. Furthermore, none of the martial dragon disciples that flew towards him were able to leave alive. This caused the others to have some thoughts in their minds. Obviously, although the commotion here was huge, it was not something that ordinary people could take advantage of. Those who wanted to take advantage of him had probably been killed and retreated. Meanwhile, Kong Shinmu was still creating commotion at the same spot. The strongest person he had seen was a first-stage transcendent. However, this guy could not withstand many moves from Kong Shinmu and was killed by Kong Shinmu directly. As for the others, there was nothing to see at all. In 5 days, he had killed more than 100 people. Kong Shinmu's qualification to advance in this small world had basically been stabilized. Moreover, there should be no one else in this trial small world who could kill so many opponents. Therefore, Kong Shinmu was very likely to be the person who killed the most enemies in the small world and survived to the end. He was tied for first place in both categories, and Kong Shinmu might even be able to break the record for the number of enemies killed. In this way, the Dragon Soul Holy Tower's evaluation of Kong Shinmu would naturally be much higher. However, now was not the time to relax. In the next 10 days or so, Kong Shinmu had to pay attention at all times and not give anyone else any chances. Thus, Kong Shinmu continued to use the 9th stage Extreme Dao Dragon Explosion on the spot, causing an even bigger commotion and attracting those dragon warriors who were confident in him over. There were so many dragon martial artists seeking death. Many disciples of the Dragon Martialist Holy Land felt that they were very strong. Therefore, they didn't dare to act cautiously in this trial pocket world. In reality, some dragon warriors were indeed very strong. They could even fight against a first-stage supreme god. His strength would be comparable to that of Gu Xinyue. However, such an opponent was still so vulnerable in front of Kong Shinmu. Therefore, it was normal for such people to be arrogant. Unfortunately, Kong Shinmu was more qualified to be arrogant than them. In the end, they all died in the hands of Kong Shinmu. Even if some of them joined forces to attack Kong Shinmu wasn't afraid at all. When had he ever been afraid of fighting one against many? The more they came, the happier he was. Time passed day by day like this. The number of opponents that Kong Shinmu could wait for became fewer and fewer. In the first 5 days he killed more than 100 people, but in the next 5 days, he only killed a total of 40 people. This was because the number of dragon martial artist disciples who were still alive in the pocket world became fewer and fewer dragon martial artists that could be attracted by Kong Shinmu. After entering this pocket world for a full 10 days, there should only be 200 to 300 people left in the entire pocket world. The other 700 people should have been sent out of this pocket world. Half of those who were able to survive in this small world were powerful dragon martial artists. They were able to defeat most of their opponents and obtain victory and the qualifications to survive. The other half were the dragon martial artists' disciples who were better at hiding. They could choose a corner to hide and fight for the last 2 places to survive. Of course, starting from the 11th day after everyone entered this pocket world, there would be a new change in this pocket world. No matter who the dragon martial artists of this pocket world were, as long as they stayed in one place for a long time without moving, they would be sent out of this pocket world. Moreover, the space in the pocket world began to shrink. The entire pocket world, which was originally 10 million miles in circumference, began to shrink according to the number of surviving dragon martial artists. Some of the space that no one stayed in would shrink to the smallest. In this way, as long as there were dragon martial artists' disciples in the area, the distance between each other would be shortened. In other words, the distance between the dragon martial artists would get closer and closer. Moreover, the dragon martial artists were not allowed to stay in the same place. Once they stayed in a place and stayed within a 10-mile radius for more than 2 hours, they would be sent out of this pocket world. Therefore, the last 5 days of this pocket world were the most exciting part of the trial. Of course, Kong Shinmu also received a hint. He had to move quickly and couldn't stay in the same place. This is good news for me. Although he couldn't stay in the same place and wait for the rabbit to come to him, in this situation, it was easier to encounter opponents if he moved than if he stayed. He quickly flew in the direction of a mountain peak. Originally, he remembered that this mountain peak was still relatively far away. But now, as the space of the pocket world shrank, this mountain peak was getting closer and closer to him. This meant that there were no other dragon martial artists nearby, otherwise the space would not have shrunk. But when Kong Shinmu arrived at the highest point of the mountain peak, he felt the aura of several dragon martial artists around him at the same time. They were all within a 500-mile radius, and they were all getting closer and closer. The space is beginning to change, and the distance between the dragon martial artists will get closer and closer until everyone can clearly feel the aura of other dragon martial artists in the surroundings. Kong Shinmu narrowed his eyes, and without hesitation, he directly flew in the direction of one of the dragon martial artists. He transformed into a black dragon and flew quickly in the air. He could clearly feel the aura of the dragon martial artist getting closer and closer. Perhaps the other party was also flying in his direction. After half an hour, Kong Shinmu finally saw a divine dragon in the sky in front of him. It was a wind attribute divine dragon, and it was also a level 1 transcendent god. Kong Shinmu had already sent away an opponent of this level. He didn't expect to meet 2 of this level in this pocket world trial. Logically speaking, a level 1 transcendent god should have long been qualified to become a grade 6 disciple. But now, the other party had come to this pocket world as a grade 5 disciple. Kong Shinmu didn't know if the other party was really a grade 5 disciple and didn't have the time to raise his rank to a grade 6 disciple, or if he had deliberately lowered his rank to a grade 5 disciple for this competition. Chapter 5086. As soon as the Gale Divine Dragon saw Kong Shinmu's black dragon body, a cruel glint flashed in its eyes. This is a great opportunity. The Gale Divine Dragon roared and suddenly charged towards Kong Shinmu. At the same time, Kong Shinmu felt an unparalleled and terrifying pressure in the surrounding space. This pressure brought with it a terrifying gale. The golden gale suddenly condensed and appeared from all directions, shrouding Kong Shinmu. Divine Rainbow Flame Gale. This was a super divine dragon technique. A transcendent level dragon martial skill was much more powerful than a dragon martial skill that a dragon emperor could cultivate, even if it was a heaven-level Holy Spirit dragon martial skill. In other words, the power of this divine rainbow flame gale was definitely stronger than Kong Shinmu's 9th stage extreme roaring dragon explosion. The golden gale from all directions suddenly swept over like a storm. It even tore the surrounding space apart and exploded around Kong Shinmu like a storm. The other party probably wanted to use this move to directly blast Jiang Shunwu out of the sect. It was a pity. Guardian Stance. Chen Xing, transform the defensive battle runes. When Kong Shinmu faced this attack, he didn't have the slightest worry and directly transformed all the battle runes in Chen Xing's dragon weapon into defensive battle runes. Coupled with the Divine Dragon Tyrant Body Technique's Guardian Stance, Kong Shinmu's physical defense had directly increased by 40 to 50 times. If Kong Shinmu reached the Super Divine tier, his defensive ability would probably increase by 100 times at this moment. However, at this moment, it was enough to increase his defense by 40 to 50 times. After all, Kong Shinmu had cultivated a variety of body-tempering dragon martial arts, and his physical defense had reached a terrifying level. In addition, all of Chen Xing's battle runes had been transformed into defensive battle runes, making Kong Shinmu's black dragon body like an iron wall. At this moment, the golden divine rainbow raging flames and astral winds suddenly enveloped Jiang Shunwu's black dragon body, completely engulfing him. Heh, you really can't withstand a single blow. It's a little too boring for me to lower my disciple rank and come to bully others in the arena of a grade 5 disciple. Watching Kong Shinmu being engulfed by the divine rainbow flame and astral wind, the wind god dragon shook his head, sneered, and turned around, wanting to leave. These Dragon Emperor-level dragon warriors were no match for him. It couldn't even withstand a single one of his divine rainbow flame astral winds. From the moment they entered this small world until now, there had been no accidents. All of them were settled with a single move of divine rainbow flame astral wind. Sometimes the fierce Gale Divine Dragon even felt that this trial was too boring. However, this time, just as he was about to turn around and leave, the golden flames and astral wind just now suddenly emitted an aura of dark power. This aura of dark power was a super dark attribute power, and it actually devoured the golden flames and astral wind the moment it appeared. Devouring power. Even though Kong Shinmu could resist the offensive power of the flames and astral wind, he still used the devouring power in order to get out as soon as possible. Immediately afterward, Chen Xing transformed all of his battle runes into attack runes. The effect of the 20 times attack power and the 33 divine feathers completely erupted at this moment. 9th stage Extreme Dragon Explosion. Without any hesitation, Kong Shinmu directly attacked the Wind God Dragon from behind. The terrifying power didn't stop at all, and it swept towards the Wind God Dragon's body. The Wind God Dragon reacted immediately and used some kind of defense method. The golden astral wind began to condense on the Wind God Dragon's body to defend. Unfortunately, Kong Shinmu's attack speed was too fast, and the Wind God Dragon didn't expect Kong Shinmu to not die in his golden flames and astral wind, causing his reaction to be half a beat slower. It was this half a beat slower that caused him to be overwhelmed by Kong Shinmu's attack without any resistance. Nearly 300 pitch-black dragon breaths blasted the Gale Divine Dragon into pieces and killed it in an instant. As the Wind God Dragon was blasted out of this trial, Kong Shinmu didn't get too much time to rest. He could feel that there were still several dragon warriors around, or rather, the aura of several divine dragons. Those were all his targets. As the results of this trial were calculated by the number of kills, Kong Shinmu didn't feel complacent at all about killing a first-stage Supreme God opponent. To him, this was nothing out of the ordinary. Then, he chose a direction where he sensed the aura of the dragon warrior and flew in that direction quickly. Over the next 5 days, Kong Shinmu's battles became more and more intense. He encountered more and more opponents, and they were getting stronger and stronger. Unfortunately, there was still no one who could withstand a single blow from him. Sometimes, Kong Shinmu would encounter some chaotic battlefields with several dragon warrior disciples fighting. Under such circumstances, Kong Shinmu would rush out and kill a dragon warrior with one move. Even if the other party reacted quickly and joined forces, they wouldn't be a match for Kong Shinmu. This was because Kong Shinmu's defense and attack had completely surpassed the level of the Dragon Emperor's peak. Just by relying on the power of the Dragon Warrior's inheritance, he was already in existence at the second stage Supreme God level. He even had a chance of winning against a third stage Supreme God. The level of power determined everything, which meant that there was no possibility of Kong Shinmu losing in the duel between the 5th class disciples. This Dragon Soul Holy Tower is really amazing. Kong Shinmu was surprised that the Dragon Soul Holy Tower had actually copied his devouring power. There was no difference when he used it, as if it was still in the outside world. This made him a little worried. Would the Dragon Soul Holy Tower recognize this devouring power and discover something from it? After all, the Dragon Soul Holy Tower was a super building of the Divine Dragon race. There were many true souls of the Divine Dragon race hidden in it, so it wasn't impossible for it to recognize the devouring power. However, up until now, Kong Shinmu had been in this small world for more than 10 days, so there shouldn't be any problems. Of course, it was hard to say. He could only say that Kong Shinmu didn't find any problems for the time being. 175. 176. 177. Kong Shinmu killed more and more Dragon Warrior opponents. The number of Dragon Warrior disciples in the entire small world was also decreasing. It was almost the last day, and there were probably only 30 to 50 Dragon Warriors left in the entire small world. Among these Dragon Warriors, there would definitely be 2 who survived to the end. Chapter 5087. The entire small world had shrunk into a very small area with a radius of only 1,000 miles. In this area, Kong Shinmu could clearly sense that there were a total of 28 Dragon Warriors still moving around in this area. Among the 28 Dragon Warriors, one of them was Kong Shinmu himself. In other words, as long as he sent away another 27 people, Kong Shinmu would be the final winner. Kong Shinmu felt that this trial in the small world was not challenging at all. This was because even if all 27 people worked together to deal with Kong Shinmu, he would not feel much pressure. Even a first-stage Transcendent Dragon Warrior would not be able to break through Kong Shinmu's strongest defense, let alone other existences that were only at the level of the Dragon Emperor. Kong Shinmu could sense that there were a total of 28 people left in the small world, including himself. All of them were at the peak of the Dragon Emperor. None of them had reached the Transcendent God level. In other words, there aren't many opponents who have reached the first stage of the Transcendent God level in this trial small world. I killed 2. In other words, there shouldn't be more than 5, right? I'll just assume that 3 Transcendent Gods were killed by others. Kong Shinmu thought to himself. However, he did not care about this anymore. This was the last day of the trial in the small world. As long as he killed the other 27 people, the trial would be over. Of course, there was still 1 day left before the deadline. If there were still more than 2 people left in the small world after a day, the final ranking would be based on the number of enemies killed. The 3 Dragon Warriors who killed the most enemies would be able to advance, and the 2 Dragon Warriors who survived to the end would be able to advance. If there were more than 2 people left in the end, then the last 2 would be determined based on the number of enemies killed. Of course, this rule had nothing to do with Kong Shinmu. In any case, he wanted to enter the second round of the trial with the best results for both parties. 27 people. Instead of killing them one by one, why don't I kill them all together? Kong Shinmu thought to himself. His perception range could be said to be the widest among everyone. Therefore, he could completely sense the movements of the remaining 27 people. It was impossible for everyone to gather together. Therefore, Kong Shinmu's idea was to kill those who were close to him first. That way, he wouldn't have to run too far away to get more kills. Right now, he could feel that there were 3 dragon warriors in one direction, who seemed to have sensed each other's existence and were cautiously approaching each other. I'll deal with those 3 first. Without any hesitation, Kong Shinmu flew in that direction. The 3 dragon warriors knew very well that this was the final moment, so they were exceptionally careful. Only 5 people from each pocket world could advance to the second round of the competition. Therefore, more than 20 people would be eliminated from the final 28. He had to stay until the end. No one knew whether they had killed the most enemies. After all, apart from Kong Shinmu, each dragon martial artist had only killed about 10 enemies. It was already quite good to be able to kill more than 20. As for those who killed 30, they would basically be able to advance to the second round of the competition. Without knowing how many people had been killed, all the dragon martial artist disciples who participated in the trial would not fight for these 3 spots. They would basically want to survive until the last 2. Kong Shinmu flew towards the 3 people and immediately concealed his figure. The 3 people did not notice Kong Shinmu's approach at all. After the 3 people approached each other, they did not immediately fight. Instead, they carefully observed each other and were wary of each other. At the same time, 2 of them even had the intention of forming an alliance. At the very least, before the final moment arrived, they wanted to work together to overcome the difficulties. Unfortunately, the black dragon body that Kong Shinmu had transformed into suddenly appeared above one of them. 9th Stage Extreme Dao Dragon Explosion. Nearly 300 pitch-black dragon breaths suddenly bombarded from the void, drowning the body of one of the divine dragons in mid-air. It was completely smashed and crushed in an instant. Such a huge change made the expressions of the remaining 2 change greatly, and they subconsciously wanted to escape. After all, Kong Shinmu's strength was obviously much stronger than theirs. If they did not run, they would be sent out of the small world here. But if they ran now, they might be able to hide and fight for the last spot. Unfortunately, Kong Shinmu did not give them any chance at all. When they wanted to escape, they found that Kong Shinmu was much faster than them. Dragon Soldier Chen Xing, Speed Battle Pattern Transformation. The Dragon Soldier Chen Xing had completely transformed into speed battle patterns. The flying speed of Kong Shinmu's black dragon body instantly burst out more than 20 times. Like a pitch-black meteor, he flew towards one of the fellows. Following that, another 300 pitch-black dragon breaths exploded, burying the divine dragon that was running away. The black flowing light changed direction and chased after another dragon martial artist. That fellow was an ice divine dragon. Seeing this, he immediately turned around, and the power of ice burst out from his body, creating a scene of ice and snow in mid-air. In this ice and snow, Kong Shinmu could clearly feel that his speed had been reduced by at least half. These dragon emperors are elites among the peak dragon emperors. On the dragon martial continent, they are much stronger and more terrifying than Dragon Emperor Yen and the others. Unfortunately, facing the current me, they are no match for me. Although Kong Shinmu's speed had been reduced by at least half by the ice and snow, the speed increase of more than 20 times from the Dragon Soldier Chen Xing was no joke. Even if it had been reduced by half, it was still more than 10 times faster. The black dragon body that Kong Shinmu had transformed into was like a black meteor streaking across the sky, passing through the world of ice and snow, and landing directly above the opponent's ice divine dragon. Following the explosion of the 300 hornless dragon explosions, the ice divine dragon was immediately sent out of this small world by Kong Shinmu. At the same time that Kong Shinmu killed the 3 dragon martial artists, battles also broke out in other directions. Kong Shinmu sensed that there were finally only 21 people left. At this time, I can't allow anyone to hide. Nightmare Ink Beast, lend me a hand. Also, Chen Xing Dragon Soldier, Clear Battle Pattern Transformation. Kong Shinmu's formless Chen Xing Dragon Soldier Chen Xing had a total of 12 different battle patterns. Clear Battle Pattern was one of them. Although Kong Shinmu's perception was already very strong because of the Nightmare Ink Beast, this was only limited to sensing opponents of the same level as him. If it was an opponent of a higher level than him, then it was very likely that he would not be able to sense them. For example, if a supreme existence hid, he would not be able to detect them at all. Chapter 5088. With the centipede ink beast and the clear battle runes activated at the same time, Kong Shinmu's perception was raised to the extreme. It was also at this time that he really discovered a situation. In addition to the 21 people that he had originally sensed, there was actually another dragon warrior hiding in the middle of the entire area without anyone noticing. This person's concealment ability had almost reached the extreme, which shocked Kong Shinmu. After all, without activating the clear battle runes, he could also sense existences at the 5th or even 6th stage of the transcendent god level. However, this guy actually escaped his perception. Without a doubt, this guy's concealment ability had probably reached the 7th stage of the transcendent god level. Of course, this did not mean that his combat power could be compared to the 7th stage of the transcendent god level, but only his concealment ability could reach that level. This was already quite impressive. Kong Shinmu had been in the Outland Fortress for so long and had encountered many foreign powerhouses and geniuses, but he had never seen such an opponent. Impressive. The corners of Kong Shinmu's lips curled up slightly. Without a doubt, this guy's concealment ability was very strong. It was a pity that Kong Shinmu's centipede ink beast ability and his clear battle runes allowed him to see through most of the concealment abilities in the world. If it was in the outside world, Kong Shinmu could even use the power of the Starry Sky inheritance, and he could even sense the hidden supreme powerhouses. Even in the small world of the Dragon Soul Holy Tower, Kong Shinmu could easily sense existences at the peak of the transcendent god level. This was the power of the clear battle runes. Once Kong Shinmu could advance to the first stage of the Super Divine Dragon, his dragon soldier Chen Xing would be able to exert greater power and might even be 3 times stronger than it was now. Under such circumstances, almost no existence could hide in front of Kong Shinmu. It could be said that this was equivalent to having the fiery eyes of truth. And now, Kong Shinmu did not intend to find the guy who was hiding. After all, there were other existences that were easier to deal with around Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu swept around. At the end of this small world trial, those who could remain were the strongest among the strong. Of course, no matter how strong they were not strong enough to attract Kong Shinmu's attention. After all, the 1,000 people in this small world was only 1/800 of all the Sacred Land's 5th grade disciples. It was already quite impressive for 1 or 2 elites to emerge from each small world. Kong Shinmu didn't believe that the remaining 20 people in this small world were all elites. At the very least, only those who could reach the first level of the Transcendent God could be considered elites in Kong Shinmu's eyes. As for the remaining 20 people, none of them had reached the first level of the Transcendent God. Of course, they definitely had their own advantages for being able to survive until now. At the very least, the number of kills each of them would not be too low. There should be more than 5. To be able to defeat 5 opponents of the same level was enough to prove their strength. However, that was all to Kong Shinmu. This time, Kong Shinmu had killed close to 200 of the 1,000 people in the small world. 9th stage Extreme Dao Dragon Explosion. Shadow Battle Patterns. Transform. Speed Battle Patterns. Transform. Kong Shinmu continued to unleash his attacks and killed one opponent after another. Soon, there were only 10 left. The remaining 20 Dragon Warrior disciples were constantly killed by Kong Shinmu. Soon, there were only 10 left. Of course, not all of the 10 people who were sent out were killed by Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu only killed 8 of them, and the other 2 were killed by others. However, that didn't matter. Because Jiang Shenwu only needed to kill 2 more people, and the number of enemies he killed would reach 200. It could be said that in such a chaotic situation, it was already extremely terrifying for him to kill 1/5 of them by himself. After all, this small world was very big at the beginning. In such a vast area of the small world, many people had killed each other. Even if Kong Shinmu's flying speed was 10 times faster, he might not be able to kill many more opponents. The main reason was that the entire small world was too big, too vast. Because of this, Ran was able to kill 77 people in the small world trial of the 4th grade disciples, which was already considered very impressive. There was no possibility of cheating for the disciples from the various sacred lands. Kong Shinmu did not stop. At this time, he had to take the final victory in one go. The remaining Dragon Warrior disciples in the surroundings could sense that the other Dragon Warrior disciples were constantly being killed in one direction. Although they didn't see it with their own eyes, they could clearly feel that there was an extremely powerful existence killing the remaining Dragon Warrior disciples. We must join forces. That's right, that guy is too strong. Unless we join forces, he will be the one to win today. I don't want to lose this chance. The remaining 7 or 8 dragon warriors finally joined forces at this time. And Kong Shinmu also clearly felt that the 7 or 8 opponents had gathered together. Although they weren't too close to each other, it was already at a distance where they could support each other. If Kong Shinmu wanted to deal with any one of them, the others could immediately help. It was a pity that they didn't expect Kong Shinmu's strength to be so strong. Void Battle Runes. Kong Shinmu's Void Battle Runes were completely transformed, allowing Kong Shinmu to move quickly in the void. This allowed his entire black dragon body to wander in the void. And when he appeared in the void, the 9th stage Extreme Roaring Dragon Explosion came into being and directly exploded in front of one of the dragon warriors. The terrifying power instantly exploded and penetrated. The void trembled. Although that dragon warrior disciple had the peak strength of the Dragon Emperor and extremely rich combat experience, there was really no way for him to resist at this time. After all, he had encountered an existence that was much stronger than him. After the first person was killed and sent away, Kong Shinmu's entire black dragon body instantly entered the void again. Void Battle Runes. For the current Kong Shinmu, the dragon warrior Chen Xing was like a tiger that had grown wings. When used flexibly, it was simply invincible in battle. The next time he appeared, another dragon warrior had been killed. Under such circumstances, the remaining 5 or 6 dragon warriors immediately broke down. They knew that it was impossible to stop Jiang Shunwu. This black dragon appeared and disappeared mysteriously. His battle prowess was too strong. It was not something they could stop. Even if all of them gathered together, it would still be impossible. Therefore, in this situation, in order to obtain more points and fight for more places to advance, they only had one choice left. And that was to kill each other. Chapter 5089. In the end, only Kong Shinmu, the Black Dragon, was left in the field. The other dragon warriors didn't even manage to kill each other. Instead, they were all sent out of the small world by Kong Shinmu with one move. At this point, there were only 2 dragon warriors left in the entire small world. One was Kong Shinmu, and the other was the hidden dragon warrior who hadn't appeared from the beginning to the end. The hidden dragon warrior hadn't come out until now, and no one knew what he was thinking. Logically speaking, that guy had already been confirmed to advance to the second round, so he should be able to come out and fight. But he still didn't come out. Kong Shinmu didn't stand on ceremony with him. Although the concealment method was indeed strong, Kong Shinmu naturally wouldn't let him go just because of that. Killing one more was a point. For Kong Shinmu, the more points he got, the more likely he was to achieve his goal. Dragon Soul Dragon Warrior. Although that was only a legend, there were indeed dragon souls and dragon warriors in this world, and they were all the ruling class of the dragon god's world. In that case, how could one become a dragon soul dragon warrior? The most important thing was still the word, dragon soul. The Dragon Soul Holy Tower was the key. It was easier said than done to get the recognition of the Dragon Soul Holy Tower. Kong Shinmu wouldn't miss even the slightest opportunity, so killing one more now was also extremely beneficial to him. It was said that the Dragon Soul Dragon Warrior had a higher probability of becoming a true ancestral dragon. Just this point alone was enough to attract Kong Shinmu. But the strange thing was that ever since Kong Shinmu came to the vicinity of the Dragon Soul Holy Tower, the Black Dragon consciousness and the Demon God Ancestor consciousness became very low-key. I wonder if this Dragon Soul Holy Tower has any effect on them? In any case, Kong Shinmu didn't hesitate now. He directly shuttled through the void and flew near the hidden dragon warrior. Then, he directly cast a 9th stage Extreme Roaring Dragon Explosion towards the other party's hidden space. Kong Shinmu's current Chen Xing Dragon Soldier was half transformed into offensive battle runes, and the other half into visible battle runes. In this way, Kong Shinmu's 9-stage Extreme Dragon Blast would only have half of its power left. Originally, he had thought that he wouldn't be able to kill the other party, but he should be able to force the other party out of his concealment. If he didn't do that, he really wouldn't be able to sense the other party's presence with just the Nightmare Ink Beast senses alone. However, what surprised him was that when his 9th stage Extreme Dao Horn Dragon Burst rushed over, that fellow didn't seem to expect someone to attack him. It was directly hit by the attack, and then the entire body of the Divine Dragon dissipated, disintegrated. That guy was sent out of this small world by Kong Shinmu. Logically speaking, this wasn't strange, but Kong Shinmu really didn't expect that guy to be completely unprepared. Isn't this fellow too strange? Kong Shinmu thought about it and did not pay much attention to it. However, he made a mental note of this person's existence. After all, the other party had already obtained the ticket and qualification to the second round of the competition, so they would definitely meet again in the future. With such a strong concealment ability, it was worth befriending him. Perhaps he would be of some use in the future. After Kong Shinmu sent that guy out of this small world, he became the last person left in this small world. Originally, he thought that he would be sent out immediately and his consciousness would return to his body. After all, the body in this small world was only a replica. However, he didn't expect that the clouds above his head would suddenly start spinning, forming an incomparably huge vortex in the sky. From that vortex, a terrifying energy fluctuation spread out. Immediately after, an old voice fell from the vortex and entered Kong Shinmu's ears. "Young man, your performance was extremely outstanding. If you can continue to work hard, you might be able to gain the favor of the Dragon Soul Heart." After these words, the vortex in the sky gradually dissipated. Immediately after, Kong Shinmu's consciousness gradually became blurry, and he exited this small world. The words that came from the vortex in the sky made Kong Shinmu's mind buzz. Just like that, it was possible to gain the favor of the Dragon Soul Heart? In that case, what exactly moved the Dragon Soul Heart? It seemed that the Dragon Soul Heart was an existence that seemed to have its own consciousness and had the means to choose its own people. Killed enough enemies? The comprehensive ability that I displayed was strong. Or some other reason? Kong Shinmu did not know the specific reason. But no matter what, he finally completed the goal of the first round of the Dragon Soul Holy Tower and became the one who killed the most enemies and survived to the last. When he opened his eyes again, what appeared in front of him was a hall. This hall was no longer as noisy as before. This seems to be a hall inside the Dragon Soul Holy Tower? Kong Shinmu looked around and could feel the strong Dragon Mark energy. Compared to the Dragon Mark energy that surrounded the Dragon Soul Holy Tower, the Dragon Mark energy was not as manic. However, it was still not something that ordinary dragon warriors could absorb at will. Kong Shinmu felt that his devouring power could absorb the Dragon Mark energy here, but unfortunately, he did not dare to make such a big move here. It would not be fun if things got out of hand, and he might not be able to leave the Dragon Soul Holy Tower for the rest of his life. Not to mention, Kong Shinmu realized that many dragon warriors that he saw before were no longer in this hall. Among those who were left in the hall, some were full of confidence, while others were at a loss at first, and then were pleasantly surprised. It could be seen that all the dragon warriors who could enter the second round of the competition were gathered in this hall. Of course, it was also possible that this was only a portion of the dragon warriors who advanced. Kong Shinmu looked around and soon saw a figure hidden in the corner. It was a skinny young man who was hidden in the shadows in the corner. If one did not deliberately look for him, they might have missed him. Is this the guy with strong concealment ability just now? The pinnacle of the Dragon Emperor. But his concealment ability has reached the 7th level of the Transcendent God. Kong Shinmu narrowed his eyes. He basically did not care about the others around him. At most, there were some outstanding people at the pinnacle of the Dragon Emperor, and there would occasionally be first-level Transcendent God. Although there were no second-level Transcendent God opponents, it was said that there were still second-level Transcendent Gods in the competition of the 5th-class disciples. Based on this situation, I'm afraid there will be 4th-level Transcendent Gods in the competition of the 6th-class disciples? It was impossible for 5th-level Transcendent Gods because the higher one went, the stricter the rules would be. The Dragon Soul Holy Tower would not be so unbalanced. The main thing was that if one was at the Transcendent God level, it was still possible for one to challenge someone of a higher level. However, if one was 2 levels higher, there was basically no chance of winning. The difference between the Transcendent Gods was huge. Am I really going to challenge the winner of the 6th-class disciples? Kong Shinmu smiled bitterly. He was determined to win first place among the 5th-class disciples. However, to be honest, he was not too confident about challenging a 6th-class disciple. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.